I go, I'm putting on. Putting on, putting on. Everywhere I go, I'm putting on. Putting on, putting on. Everywhere I go, I'm putting on. Putting on. Where you from?
Welcome to Popcorn Sports on the Popcorn Entertainment Network. I'm your host, Mike Kyle, and welcome to yet another episode of Why You Should Root for every team in the NBA for the 2018-2019 season. I, of course, am not alone for this series as we look to preview the Charlotte Hornets this year. I'm joined by Dylan Jackson. You can follow him on Twitter at JAX on NBA. He covers the Charlotte Hornets for atthehive.com and queencityhoops.com. Dylan, go ahead, introduce yourself. How you doing today, man?
I'm doing good. I'm ready to talk about some basketball, ready to talk some Hornets. How are you doing today?
I'm great. I'm really excited for this episode because the Hornets are my new team for this season, and they are the reason that this series is even in existence right now. So the first question I want to ask you is, how did you become a fan of the Charlotte Hornets, and ultimately, how did you begin to cover them?
So I became a Hornets fan. I mean, I've really been a Hornets fan for life, but I really started watching the team a couple of years ago when Kemba Walker was on the rise. Really, like my first main year watching this team was in 2016 when we had the playoff run against Miami Heat. Mm-hmm. I know it's pretty recent, and but that does prove that I'm not a bandwagon fan because look at the team, look at the history of this team. I started covering the team in March of 2017. I sent and I haven't really told this to anybody, but I sent a I mean, I'm going to be harsh with myself here, but I sent a crappy email to the editor at the time who's now stepping down. As like, I wanted to get into writing, but I sent him an example of my writing, and he took me on the team even when he probably shouldn't have. And so yeah, that's really when I got started writing, and I mean it's been getting better since.
Right, I read your work today covering the Charlotte Hornets salary cap situation now going forward. It was really great. You can check that out on atthehive.com. So let's go into the general overview of the Charlotte Hornets. They joined the NBA in 1989. They're called the Hornets due to a citywide naming contest, but there is some historical context as well. You guys can find that online somewhere. It's too lengthy for me to explain right here. Their colors are teal and purple, which is such a beautiful color scheme. 10 playoff appearances, 0 championships, and they play in the Southeast Division with Miami, Orlando, Atlanta, and Washington. I want to take this time now to kind of recap last season, because last season was interesting. They went 36-46. I believe it was a 12-game differential compared to their record. The previous season, they lost 12 more games. They missed the playoffs in the Eastern Conference. They traded back to take Miles Bridges with the 12th overall pick. They had Dwight Howard last season. That didn't quite work out when they let go of Steve Clifford. There's a lot to digest there for that last season. Go ahead and break it down for me.
Yeah, last season was a pretty big disappointment. I was expecting them to finish in that 5th, 6th seed sort of range in the Eastern Conference. Obviously, that didn't happen. We were super excited about Dwight Howard here, and obviously that just didn't happen. He wasn't great on offense defensively. He was okay, but in the locker room, I mean, he was just a cancer. It's been pretty much that way everywhere he goes. Another guy is Malik Monk. Just Steve Clifford didn't really give him any minutes, and really he didn't give any of the young guys too many minutes. And I think because of that, among our record, finished with the exact same record in 2017 as 2018, which of course is 12 less wins than 2016 when we went to 7 games with the Heat. I mean, it's not great. So not really going anywhere up or down despite new additions. It just wasn't great. And because of that, both Rich Cho, the general manager, and Steve Clifford were fired.
Yeah, I think what was interesting last season was, you kind of touched on it, was Malik Monk just didn't see the floor in consistent minutes. Not towards the end of the year when they were pretty much punting at that point because their chances of making the playoffs decreased significantly towards the last month or so. But I mean, once he got on the floor, specifically the last game versus Chicago, I mean, he just lit it up, and he started to do that for like the last 2 weeks of the year.
Yeah, he averaged I believe it was over 20 points his last 6 games.
Mm-hmm.
And the fact that we weren't even playing him before that it's kind of amazing. He only averaged, I think, 17 minutes per game over the whole season. So I was a really big fan of Malik Monk going into the draft and coming out of it. Obviously, I didn't expect us to actually land him. He was projected to go 8th to the Knicks that year, I think. So I thought we came away with the steal. And last year, Steve Clifford just didn't really prove that. And again, that's one of the reasons he was fired.
Right. Malik Monk averaged just 13 and a half minutes per game last year, and that was it. Finished with 6.5 points per game in those 13 and a half minutes. So now let's enough of last season, because this year's Charlotte team is going to be very fun and very interesting in my opinion. So they let go of Steve Clifford. They brought in James Borrego under the Greg Popovich coaching tree. Their roster looks like Kemba Walker, Nick Batum, Malik, Dwayne Bacon, Miles Bridges, the prized rookie who has already flashed in summer league as well as preseason, Jeremy Lamb, Cody Zeller, Frank Kaminsky, Michael Kidd-Gilchrist, Marvin Williams, Tony Parker. Like, this roster is so balanced. That's the best way I can put it right now.
I mean, I mean the amount of two-way players that we have on our team isn't great, but like you said, we've got a lot of balance. We've got a lot of offensive players, a lot of defensive players, and also I do like the athleticism added between this year and last year.
I'll tell you this. The one player who I'm really looking forward to watching this season outside of Miles Bridges, who as I've already mentioned, has just had monster highlights just to start preseason. But the player I'm really interested in is Tony Parker this year, because one of the things that the Hornets have struggled with is giving Kemba Walker some relief. They brought in Michael Carter-Williams last year, and that didn't work out. He got injured, didn't play while he was in, and so now they bring in Tony Parker as well as Devontae Graham, the rookie point guard out of Kansas. And I feel like just giving Kemba that flexibility, one, to take a breather, and two, to play off the ball, is really going to help the Charlotte Hornets on offense this year.
Oh, yeah. And, I mean, James Borrego has even touched on Tony Parker playing in clutch situations with Kemba Walker, just, as a two-guard backcourt, I guess. And really, that's where we struggled last year, is I believe we went 0-13 to start the year in games decided by 3 points or less. So having somebody experienced in that situation can only help the Hornets, and at least get some of those losses into wins, hopefully.
Right. Is there a player that you're really looking forward to watching this season?
Malik Monk. I already touched on it, obviously, but really I'm just super excited to see how he performs in the six-man role, which has been teased by James Borrego again. And, I mean, if he gets solid, consistent minutes, I think he could be a really, really nice bench piece and possibly even a starter.
I think that starter role will come in the later years and probably not this year, just because that's the thing, like with this team, they have a really good balance of both veterans and young players, but on the flip side of that, the young players won't probably see as many minutes because they have those veterans ahead of them.
Agreed. And we've got a solid group of veterans. I mean, it's
right.
Something special. Marvin Williams, MKG, is in his sixth year now, I'd like to say. I mean, we've got a lot of quality veterans, but I mean, we're going to fight for a playoff spot this year, and hopefully Miles Bridges is a part of that. But as of right now, I mean, I'm just not too big of a fan. I mean, I'd like to add another quality veteran, I guess you'd say, just like a power forward to fill that Marvin Williams type role when he does start to get older.
One of the things you're going to start to see now is a shift between kind of fleshing out some of the veterans and probably bringing in and rising the minutes of those young players. If this year doesn't go well, I think they're going to kind of not do a hard reset, but really just begin that process of playing the young guys more consistently to really develop them in the future going forward.
I agree, and I think we've got a solid young core. We've got Billy Hernangomez on the bench. I really think he could get some starting minutes this year, too. We've got Malik Monk, Devontae Graham, Miles Bridges, and even Dwayne Bacon showed some flashes last year, just being a solid two-way player.
One of the interesting dynamics for the Hornets this season is Kemba Walker, and this is something that you touched on in your salary cap article. He's a free agent this year. He's only making $12 million this season, and there are a number of players on this Hornets team who are nowhere near as good as him, making more money than he is. So with that in mind, first off, I don't want to put you on the spot and say, what do you think Kemba does? Because it's been kind of all over the place. There are people that think he's going to stay. The brass certainly is going to try and keep him there. And Kemba Walker has said himself, hey, I want to come back, but hey, we'll see what happens.
Yeah, I mean, if I had to guess right now, just like as of this moment, I probably couldn't tell you. I mean, he's only got 1 year left on his deal, $12 million. It's not a lot of money. Bismack Biyombo, MKG, Marvin Williams, Nick Batum, and Cody Zeller are all making more money than him. And to give him the amount of money he rightfully deserves, it would be a lot of pressure on the Hornets organization, especially one that's trying to stay below the tax level. Because in reality, we are a very mediocre team. And to pay tax for a team that has kind of scraped the playoffs for the past couple of years, I don't necessarily think Michael Jordan would be willing to do that.
Yeah, I don't think so either. But as you just mentioned, they've been a very mediocre team and just trying to get into the playoffs in recent years, successfully doing it in 2016. But what do you think is right now the ceiling for this team? Maybe not this year, but going forward.
Going forward, I have to say maybe like next year, the year after, probably like the sixth seed in the Eastern Conference. I don't want to sound too pessimistic, but I mean we just got a lot of money tied up over the next few years that we're just gonna have to watch roll off of the books year by year, and hopefully that frees up some cap space, that opens up some minutes for the young guys, and obviously Kemba Walker, if he resigns, that obviously is not gonna hurt, regardless of whether you're looking to trade him in the future or, I mean, really just keep him on your team and let him score 25 points a game.
Right. And now with all this new era of the Hornets, there is James Borrego, as we mentioned previously. What are your expectations from him? What are the things that you've liked so far? What do you think he's going to do to this organization?
I like James Borrego because he reminds me of Mike D'Antoni, just a little bit less extreme about his principles. He's
Yep.
all about the corner 3-point shot, all about switching on defense. And I just really like that over Steve Clifford, who was more of a defensive anchor type of guy. I mean, we saw that with Dwight Howard and Cody Zeller in past years. And it's not like James Borrego is going to not emphasize that, but it's certainly going to be to a lesser degree.
Yeah, I think one of the things that was interesting about James Borrego, specifically just through these first three preseason games at the time that we're recording this, is that just the amount of players just bringing the ball up the court. It's not like Kemba has to bring it up every time. I mean, Jeremy Lamb was bringing it up. Miles Bridges was bringing up a number of times. Dwayne Bacon it was just like get the ball, rebound, pass it to a guard or a ball handler, and go.
Yeah, and they're going to play a lot faster this year, too. And I think that's one of the factors that plays into that. They've been practicing with this 12-second shot clock
Yep.
in mini camp. So I'm really interested to see how they play both offensively and defensively once the season rolls around.
It'll be a very under the radar team this season for sure. But now I want to shift gears to like the fan base, the fun, the culture surrounding the Charlotte Hornets, because it's been a bit miserable throughout the past decade or so, slowly building themselves up. But one of the things that I've noticed just in my very, very small time of being a Hornets fan is that even though it is a very small fan base, it's a super tight-knit community.
Oh, yeah, for sure. And I mean, you see it on Twitter. Everybody follows everybody. Everybody has like the same taste in memes. Like last year, it was, I mean, I had dozens of them myself. Dozens and dozens of Michael Carter Williams jokes. Like he missed like 50 some layups, and I mean, just to put it short, it was glorious.
Yeah, I remember seeing you tweet just recently when Michael Carter Williams made his Rockets debut in their preseason game. You said, I can't wait for Michael Carter Williams to miss some layups for the Rockets this year."
Oh yeah, yep. I'm all about the missed layups from MCW.
So one of the other things that I found too is that there, and you kind of just touched on it there, is that there are like these really like just small pocket communities of Hornets fans, where they all just kind of like mix and match, and like you can just see people in one thread and you'll see them in another. So what can you kind of speak to that as far as Charlotte Hornets Twitter or Charlotte Hornets social media, that following and that dynamic?
I'm personally involved with, at the Hive, so I see a lot of people commenting on there, and, they'll follow me on Twitter and kind of say the same thing and reply to one of my tweets. But, I mean, I'm friends with a lot of the Swarm and Sting writers, which is the fan-sided affiliate for their Hornets community.
Right.
And really, they kind of intertwine a little bit, which is just really nice to see between the two websites. We've got our community at SB Nation, they've got fan-sided, and really they just kind of mesh well.
Right, and I believe you are in that Carolina area, correct?
I am. I live in South Carolina.
Right, so I'm sure you are just surrounded by Hornets fans, where you live, maybe a little bit up north as well. And so for me being in Cleveland, I just see everything online. So since you are in it, explain that to me. Like, how is that like compared to online?
Well, you see a lot, and I mean a lot of retro style Hornet stuff because really that was kind of like our golden age, I want to put it. Because right now we haven't totally rebuilt our fan base. Of course, getting the branding rights to the Charlotte Hornets is certainly a step forward in that.
Right.
But I mean, the Bobcats, that was hideous, and I think that did put a kind of a bad mark on. I mean, I don't want to say anything was too bad, but it's just not as great as when it was the Hornets when they were selling out when they were selling out their stadium for years upon years in the 90s.
Yeah, I think one of the things that was interesting for me, because I went to Charlotte around this time last year, and there were just people all along downtown, like just wearing Hornets gear, and I felt like that was just really cool. Because yes, you have the Panthers, and obviously, you know, Cam Newton and everybody that plays for that football team is just so big, but I just felt like that was just really cool to just kind of go down in like early October, and people are already like rocking their Hornets gear.
Oh yeah, for sure. And I mean, the Hornets, I would have to say they have some of the best merchandise in the NBA. So
Facts.
even people who aren't fans of the team love their merchandise.
Yeah, I have a snapback, I have shorts, I have a long sleeve, so I'm ready to go for my first season as a full-time Hornets fan. So we're going to wrap this up with this. You have 30 seconds to pitch anybody why they should be a fan of the Charlotte Hornets this season. Go ahead.
The Charlotte Hornets are, again, a tightly knit community. We've got tons and tons of memes that will entertain you even when the team doesn't. And I think that's one of my main selling points in trying to convince other people to become Hornets fans. We've got Kemba Walker. We have a surprisingly good young core, Miles Bridges, Malik Monk, Dwayne Bacon, and Billy Hernan-Gomez really as well. And I think just going into the future, it's a really exciting concept to be a part of. Obviously, we're still a really young team as well. So anyways, I would become a Hornets fan if you are undecided.
I think that is a great case for the Charlotte Hornets. Dylan Jackson, thank you so much for taking the time to come up to join us today. You can follow him on Twitter at JAX on NBA. He covers the Charlotte Hornets for atthehive.com and queencityhoops.com. You got anything else to plug?
No, not really, but thanks for having me on.
Absolutely. Hey, if you guys enjoyed this video, be sure to leave a like and subscribe down below. Be sure to check back with us tomorrow for a whole nother episode.